Hey everybody, and welcome to Don't Copy That Floppy, your weekly video game news podcast, broadcasting live Fridays 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/DCTF podcast. It is Friday, April 27th. I am your host, Lex, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Booge.
And we're going to be talking about all sorts of video game news that happened this week. We're going to be talking about all those sweet new sales figures. Hot dog. Then we're going to be talking about all those sweet investor reports coming out of Nintendo. Then we're going to be talking about a company acquiring another company. After that, going to be talking about lawsuits, followed by another lawsuit, followed by a story about Blizzard not involved with a lawsuit, followed by a story that involves Blizzard in something that could lead to a lawsuit.
It's a very businessy, very legalese kind of show I think we have.
Yeah, this week we saw a lot of lawyery action going down.
Yes, litigious, very litigious week.
Oof. Then after that, we'll be talking about games that came out and games that are about to come out. So let's start off with all those game sales charts.
It's the most wonderful time of the month, Lex. It's NPD time. We actually haven't done one of these in a while, but NPD is a group that tracks sales of video games, and it's generally a good pulse of the industry, see where we're at, generally speaking. Although, to be fair, it does not count in Steam sales, so you won't see things like, you won't see things like Fortnite, which isn't on Steam, but PC sales in general. You get what I mean? And so the big takeaway from March, the game industry generated $1.32 billion in March, down 11% year over year. However, game consumers have still dropped more cash in 2018 than 2017 so far. Sales have hit $3.41 billion, up 15% year over year from $2.98 billion, according to NPD. Well, year over year, let's see. 2018 so far compared to 2017, we're up 15% in sales overall. So basically, over a year, $3.51 billion have been made in hardware and software. Hardware made $925 million, which is up 13%, probably thanks to the Switch, I'm sure. PC and console software is up 8% to $1.53 billion, and accessories are selling $956 million, up 29%, probably also thanks to the Switch. And Far Cry 5 debuts as the top-selling title of March 2018 and instantly becomes the best-selling title of 2018. NPD analyst Matt Piscatella said, Far Cry 5 sets a new launch month sales record for the Far Cry franchise and consumer spending on full-time games sales, nearly doubling that of the previous franchise best, Far Cry 3. Publisher Ubisoft is the leading publisher in both March 2018 year-to-date, January through March. And for the software, we have our top runners. These are the best-selling games. Once again, not counting in PC sales, or this would be a very different chart, I imagine. But number one, we got Far Cry 5. Number two, Sea of Thieves. Did not see that one coming. Did not expect that to be selling as well as it is. Number three, MLB 18 The Show. Number four, Kirby Star Allies. Number 5, Grand Theft Auto 5, because you can it'll never come down. It'll never not be up there. Number 6, Call of Duty World War II. Number 7, Mario Kart 8. Number 8, Ni no Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom, also doing better than I thought, although those games are really cool, so I'm glad for it. Number 9, NBA 2K18. Number 10, Monster Hunter World, still hanging on. Number 11, Super Mario Odyssey, also still hanging on. Number 12, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, also hanging on. Number 13, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Pretty crazy considering this does not count for PC sales. Number 14, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. Number 15, A Way Out. Good for them. And that drunk guy that says fuck the Oscars. Number 16, Assassin's Creed Origins. Number 17, Dragon Ball FighterZ. Number 18, FIFA 18. Number 19, Splatoon 2. And at 20 is UFC 3.
Good for UFC 3 breaking into the top 20.
Yeah, gotta get that the octagon in there. So not too. There's only a couple surprises I feel here. Sea of Thieves sticks out to me.
Sea of Thieves doesn't surprise me at all. I'm surprised it surprises you, but
really?
Everyone's streaming it, and people. It's not necessarily that people think it's an amazing game, but everyone's talking about it, and all the big streamers are streaming it. So I imagine that would generate significant sales.
That's true. I mean, I guess I only looked at the reviews, and everyone's like, "Yeah, it's not so good," and I was like, "Oh well." And that's also because it was a Xbox and PC only game, and it was kind of a weird concept that you needed people to play, like you needed friends to play with. So
Hmm.
I guess that's why I thought it was. But it is true that I mean, streaming sells games, so it
Yep.
totally makes sense.
Now, I'm not saying it's gonna have any staying power on this list. I seriously doubt it will, but I think a lot of people picked it up because of the word of mouth about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think most of it is pretty average everywhere else. The one that Player Unknown's Battlegrounds at 13s is, like I said, it's only surprising because that's only on Xbox One. That's not counting for PC sales.
Hmm.
So pretty impressive being on one console. Um,
And it's
yeah,
I think it's interesting that you have these two titles. You have Grand Theft Auto, and then you have Rainbow Six Siege that just
hmm
they just hang on by their fingernails for like
yeah,
ever.
yeah. And I mean, we talked about how. Did we talk yesterday or oh, I wasn't here last week, but did you talk about how? I can't remember when this was. Like Grand Theft Auto 5 is now like the best-selling thing of all time. Like,
You did do a story on that with me like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yes.
okay, yeah, and it is like the best-selling. I think it is the best-selling media product of all time.
Yep.
So unsurprising, I guess, that it's still on those charts. That's also not including PC sales. So
That's madness that it's at number 5, not including
mhm.
PC sales. Whoa.
Yeah. Or not including PC digital sales, which is, I'm sure, what accounts for most PC sales these days. I think. I don't think many of us have DVD players, so.
But yeah, so the fact that A Way Out got onto that list, good for them, as you said. It's
Hmm.
always nice to see an indie game get into that top selling spot, and good for Nintendo for keeping a bunch of its properties on that list. That's always encouraging.
Hmm.
Yeah. Otherwise, like the fact that Far Cry 5 is number one on the list surprises no one.
No, yeah, I know I want to play it. Far Cry games are fun, even if they're a little vapid and stupid. They're pretty and they're fun to play.
Let's see. Anything else out of this report that you want to highlight?
Not much. Best-selling games of 2018 so far. Far Cry 5 is number one. Monster Hunter World is number two. Dragon Ball Fighter Z is number three. We got Call of Duty, then we got Grand Theft Auto 5, NBA, PlayerUnknown's Battleground, Sea of Thieves, MLB The Show, and Mario Kart 8. So, uh, Monster Hunter World fucking tearing up the world as it has been for the past couple months. Good for them, I guess.
Yeah.
And all you folks that like monster hunting.
I'm actually really surprised that Fighters it is in the top 10 and is 3 in that category. Because
Yeah.
I know that like people are really into it, but I always assumed it was like a niche community was really into it. I didn't realize it had as much mass appeal or enough mass appeal to be number 3 in that list.
Right. Yeah, I think it's both because, like, yeah, the fighting game community loves it because it's made from, a well-respected developer and apparently plays really well. But then you have everyone that's like around our age that grew up with Dragon Ball Z, and they take one look at that game and they're like, "Oh my God, it looks just like the show," and probably buy it. So yeah, good for them. Good
Uh,
on them.
yeah, and that's the only thing out of that top 10 list that surprises me at all. I think everything
Hmm.
else seems pretty standard. They have the best-selling games for the past 12 months, which is kind of like encompasses, the last holiday season and the lead up to that.
Hmm.
Uh,
Grand Theft Auto 5 is still in there.
of course it is. Of
I
course
can't.
it is.
Who doesn't own Grand Theft Auto 5 at this point? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how it can keep just generating consistent sales because doesn't everybody already have it? um,
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
but it's good to see a bunch of Nintendo games in there. And oh, Destiny 2. I almost put in a story about Destiny 2 into the lineup today because Destiny 2 is like they're just having a bad time.
Are
Like,
they?
they're desperately trying to claw back players, and they're like doing previews for new expansions or DLC or whatever they call it for that.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, oh no, it's not gonna work. Everyone's
It's not
done with
gonna
your game.
work.
Everyone's done with your game. Uh,
You know what? Actually, probably the most surprising thing is that Fortnite's not on here.
oh yeah, where's Fortnite? Get
I
Fortnite
don't
over
know.
here.
Now I wonder because it's on PS4, and I just looked this up. It's on PS4 and Xbox One, and obviously PC. But is this only counting box box copies even for the consoles? I'm not sure because maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's only available digitally. I don't know. Because I really thought that it would be tearing up the list. You hear about how it's doing so damn well.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's free to play. That's why. Never mind.
Oh, duh.
Yeah, I'm stupid.
It can't be on this list because no one paid for it.
Right, exactly. It'd be interesting just if these were lists of games that generate recurrent consumer spending and not one-time purchases.
MTXs. Get those MTXs in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so talking about profits, people, games making money, companies making money. Nintendo, they had their investor call thing, and we have reports about that, and man, are they doing well. I mean, not surprising to anyone, but it's kind of surprising how well they're doing. In this article from Investor Place, the place for investors, Investor Place.
Sure.
Nintendo profit is up over 500% on Switch sales, but NTDOY, which is the code for the Nintendo stock, is down.
Doy.
Is down currently because the stock market is stupid and doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I mean, it's like we reported on when Nintendo had that dumb situation with Pokemon Go, where Pokemon Go came out and then the Nintendo stock skyrocketed because nobody freaking realized that Niantic is a separately public traded company, so they didn't invest in the company that actually made the game because investors are too dumb to figure that out.
Smart. You gotta put more money into like Berkshire Hathaway and shit like that. Can't be who's these kids with these Pokemons? Who cares?
Let's see. So, Switch sales drive massive Nintendo profit increase, surprising no one. This is their earnings report from March 31st. 2018. Let's see here. For the year, Nintendo generated $9.66 billion in revenue, an increase of 116% compared to 2016. And while that's an impressive number, earnings are even more so, $1.62 billion on the year, a whopping 505% increase.
My goodness. Just add to that war chest, that Nintendo war chest.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, at least Nintendo knows how to invest. They know how to buckle down and save money when they need to save money. So this is driving that Nintendo profit were Switch sales, obviously. The company reported it sold over 15 million of the portable consoles during the year covered, bringing lifetime sales to over 17.79 million units. Whew,
that's a lot of units.
Yeah. So that's great. That's really great to hear. And it's really unfortunate and frustrating that they are being rewarded with I think it's a 3% stock dip. Because again, I think investors are just stupid and don't understand what's going on.
I think that over time I think that'll be a net increase over a long period.
I think it will, because eventually people will realize what's going on and the market will sort of even itself out.
I certainly know that if I had enough money, I would love to own some Nintendo stock right now. Because they're on the upswing for sure.
Oh, definitely. I wonder how much Nintendo stock is. Like the stock price.
Well, the thing is that I don't know if they mentioned in here, but I think this is only accounting for the New York Stock Exchange stocks of Nintendo, because unless you're a Japanese citizen, you can't buy actual Japanese Nintendo stocks. Like you have to actually, I think, have Japanese citizenship to buy on the Japanese stock market. Yeah, I think the one thing that's interesting is it says that so far that the Switch has sold 17.79 million units. To put that in perspective, its previous generation Wii U consoles sold 13.56 million units during its entire 5-year span. Which is pathetic for Wii U.
Oh, Wii U.
Poor, sad little kid's toy that it was. Little Fisher-Price thing. And it does say that Sony, the PlayStation 4, recently hit 76 million units, which is crazy in itself. But it's been on sale for 4.5 years. So, interesting.
Yeah, they got that time. They got time working for them.
Yep.
Which this article also talks about, but it kind of segues into the other big Nintendo story from this week, which is Nintendo has a new president got a new Prezi up in there.
Yeah.
So the old the I'm sorry, Iwata, the guy who
Yep.
passed away.
Satoru Iwata. Yep.
Yes, in 2015 or 2016, I think it was
It
15.
was yeah, it was 15.
Yeah, 2015 passed away suddenly, and Nintendo needed to name a new guy. I mean, we reported about it at the time, but it was Tatsumi Kimishima, and he was much older than the previous president had been, and he wasn't really, as I recall, and I don't exactly remember, but I think he was not from a creative department. He was from like more of a managerial sort of background.
Yeah,
And
I believe it was.
and even at the time, a lot of people speculated, and we also speculated that he was a placeholder for someone else because it was so unexpected that they were going to need a new president at that time. They just needed someone to fulfill the role and sort of shepherd in the switch.
Yeah.
But they have now named a new president, and let's see, Sunetoro Furukawa. Furukawa.
Close enough.
Close enough. And he is the new guy, the new hip young guy at 46.
That's what I thought was funny because they talk about they're like, his youth and his vigor at 46, and I'm like, man, the values are very different in Japan than they are in America. Like, yeah, I just found that interesting.
No, it was funny. So he's going to be the new president. Kimishima will be staying on an advisory role for some time, but Furukawa is apparently he was the guy who ran the Pokemon company.
There you go.
So that's cool. He's dealt with more of the fun, creative side of Nintendo. So I am totally into it, and I am happy to see him take over and see what he's gonna do. It's good. It's a good. I think it's a totally reasonable change up.
Yeah, I think they do. They mentioned in another article that Kimishima isn't being let go. He is stepping down, saying that he wants to. You need someone younger to kind of understand their customers. And I think that it's like, well, it's probably not fair to say that Kimishima made many decisions that like resulted in the success. Like, I'm sure most of this stuff was kind of already on the docket. He certainly did a good job of fucking making it work when he needed to. You know? So good on him, I guess.
Yeah, it does seem like, and I guess my theory is that Iwata sort of set up everything for the Switch and how it was all gonna play out. And then when Kimishima came in, he just sort of followed that blueprint.
Yeah, probably.
Totally.
And I mean, like, to give Iwata credit, unfortunately he passed away. And he wasn't even that old either. I think he was in his early 50s, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was the president for a long time. I mean, he saw it through Wii when everything was really good. And then he saw it through the shit of Wii U when it was really bad. And like you said, I'm sure that he was probably spearheaded most of the things that are making Nintendo super successful nowadays. So, good on him posthumously,
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully, good to see Nintendo doing good. Good that we have hard numbers on that, and hopefully that stock price will actually reflect their sales in the coming months.
I also have to say that I just love it was in the other article, the look of Nintendo's building, their corporate building. It's just like this white cube. It just says Nintendo at the top. It's like super imposing.
Oof.
Imposing Nintendo.
Terrifying.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move over to Valve nomming up a company.
Oh my God, Valve's making games, kind of?
Sort of. Not really.
Valve has acquired Firewatch studio Campo Santo. Video game distributor Valve has acquired Firewatch developer Campo Santo, according to Kotaku. Campo Santo confirmed the news in a blog post last night. Campo Santo says that it loves making video games and that it, quote, found a group of folks who, to their core, feel the same way about the work that they do in Valve. The 12-person studio will relocate to Valve's headquarters in Seattle. The studio also says that it will continue production on its next game, In the Valley of Gods, which I always think should be In the Valley of the Gods. Anyways, and confirmed to Polygon that the game won't be a PC exclusive under Valve. The studio will also continue to support Firewatch and release its literary journal, The Quarterly Review. Founded in 1996, we know who Valve is.
We know Valve.
And yeah, this is interesting. We had heard news a couple months ago. Gabe Newell gave a investor meeting or something, saying that that Valve is going to be making new games, despite everyone not thinking that they would. Interesting that they meant this or things like this by buying up studios, especially ones like Campo Santo, which, Firewatch is really good, but they are, if you don't know, Campo Santo is made up of former Telltale people, and they're very much just like a small narrative games company. So strange that Valve would buy them up, because they're basically a company that's focused on gigantic, competitive, money-making machines,
No, I don't understand this move at all, and I actually think it is a bad move on Valve's part.
Well, I mean, they got the money, so what do they care?
I mean, that's the thing, right? They have plenty of money, but it doesn't seem like a wise purchase of that money, because Valve for years has set itself up as like, hey, we created Steam, and it's a platform so that all of these indie game makers can come on it and sell their games, and we take a cut. So they've already gotten past the point where they need to buy any of these studios.
Yeah.
So it's really weird. It feels like they're regressing to by buying an indie game darling studio, because that's the less profitable move.
It's weird, yeah. I wonder what the other motivation behind this is. It seems, I mean, Valve's super smart, Gabe Newell's super smart, so there's got to be some reason behind it, right? Other than just, hey, we like your games, come make games with us. It's very strange move. I mean, like, another thing that I find is interesting, and I heard this talked about in in a podcast earlier this week about this story. Somebody brought up the fact that Campo Santo was based in San Francisco, and they are a small studio, only 12 people, and Firewatch did okay, but as we all know, the price of living and operating a business in San Francisco is absolutely bonkers. And there's more and more and more indie and large, scale studios that are leaving San Francisco because it's just not tenable to do business there. Like Visceral was a huge company, a huge video game company in San Francisco that got shut down, for reasons that maybe included the fact they were in San Francisco, but not only the fact they're in San Francisco. And it makes me wonder, it's like, maybe did Campo Santo look around? It's like, hey, we want to keep making this game, but we can't be here anymore. This is just insane. And maybe they had an offer from Valve, and they're like, fuck it, we're going to Seattle.
Yep.
Because it's way cheaper to live there. And yeah, so it makes me wonder if the future of video games in San Francisco has any future, or if it's just going to all collapse because it's too damn expensive.
I wonder about the future of everything in San Francisco.
Yeah, seriously.
Is there just a point where that housing bubble is going to burst and then their prices will go down? I don't know. That has nothing to do with video games, but speculation.
Yeah. I imagine that eventually San Francisco will just be the people that work at Apple and Google living near where they work, and that's it. And those are the only people that actually live there.
Their own private city. So
yeah, pretty much.
Oof. But
that's some Shadowrun-esque future.
Yeah, it totally is. Getting back to video games, Shadowrun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a strange move. I don't understand it. I am intrigued to see what Valve announces for that studio after In the Valley of Gods is released, in terms of what their next project will be.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that game, by the way. Firewatch was a cool game, and this new one seems neat. I think it's set in a kind of a 1920s Egypt, kind of Indiana Jones-ish looking thing.
A little bit like that, yeah.
And it'll be really weird to see that, and then it'll be produced by Valve. It's like that's just a weird thing to see, I think. But yeah, who knows?
Ooh, how many Half-Life references, how many Easter eggs for Half-Life 3 will be in the Valley of Gods?
Maybe In the Valley of Gods is Half-Life Episode 3.
Oh my god! No. Moving on.
Yeah, confirmed.
Moving on to some patent trolling going on here. What, at first glance, I was like, is this patent trolling? Let me read into it further. Maybe it's not. Oh no, it totally is. Okay. Microsoft is being sued for patent infringement of a game engine. Microsoft infringement has been egregious and willful, according to the claimants. So basically, what you got to know is Terminal Reality and Infernal Technologies are, I guess, two companies. I think it was originally Terminal Reality, and then they founded Infernal Technologies or something. But they are a video game developer, and they created an engine called the Infernal Engine, obviously, and they license it out to other companies to use for making games. Seems totally reasonable, right? Except no one cares about that engine because games aren't usually made in that. Also, Terminal Reality's games all suck.
Yep. You ever heard of Blood Rain?
Oh,
They made that.
oh no, Blood Rain. I mean, Blood Rain was big at the time. It got several major motion pictures that weren't major at all.
It did. Those aren't those Uwe Boll movies?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Boll. Ooh, he's so bad. He's just awful. So
he made a Far Cry movie too.
oh no, did he?
Yep.
Get that guy out of here, please. He made a Dungeon Siege movie. I remember.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, with Jason Statham, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And a House of the Dead movie. How the hell does he get the rights to these things?
I mean, he doesn't anymore. There was like a weird 10-year period where he made a bunch of video game movies, and after they all did poorly,
because they're all garbage.
Yeah, he finally stopped getting money.
Yeah. And then he was in a boxing match with Low Tax.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Anyways,
so that they licensed out this game engine apparently way back in the year of our Lord 1995.
Oh my god.
They were working with Microsoft, or they began working with Microsoft, and Microsoft licensed their or got their game engine to use for different things, games that were being developed. And now Terminal Reality is like, hey, you infringed on our copyright because you used not our engine without permission, but maybe parts of programming that are in our engine that we patented that have to do with, what was it, like lighting and shading techniques. The use of pre-computed shadow fields in lighting and shading techniques used in video games. I don't know.
Sure, why
not? I saw that and I was like, oh, this is a patent troll, because that's a super broad thing to patent.
Yeah.
And it, I guess it shouldn't come as a surprise given that this is a studio that has not had a hit game in a long time. So I guess they have turned to patent trolling, which is just sad.
Sure.
Sad and pathetic. But they're coming after Microsoft. They name a slew of random games that don't seem to have anything to do with each other in terms of the engine they're made in or anything other than they're all made by Microsoft. Does it mention the games in this article? Yes, it does.
One of them was Battlegrounds, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
It's like made an Unreal. Like
yeah, it's Gears of War 4, Halo 5, Sea of Thieves. And then the other things like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. There was
I think those are all made in Epic, in Unreal. Actually,
there was like a whole big old list. This article actually doesn't talk about all of them, but I was looking at another one earlier that gave a more complete list of it, and it was just like a bunch of games that don't have anything to do with each other.
Yeah. But their lighting looks the same.
But they all use lighting. So
yes. Sue everyone that has lighting in their games.
Oh god, it's just awful. It's just patent trolling is awful. And on the one hand, it's tough to feel a lot of remorse for Microsoft because they're like this mammoth company. And at least it's not like the individual devs of this game. Like if the devs of Sea of Thieves were getting struck by this patent infringement lawsuit, I would be sad about it. Because, all they did was make a game without very much content in it. They're not bad people.
No, they're rareware.
Yeah,
they've been around.
But but Microsoft can handle this. I assume that with this is just going to be a probably fairly long, drawn out lawsuit that Microsoft will win in the end, and it will have been a huge waste of Terminal Reality's time and money when they lose.
They could have been making a new Blood Rain game this whole time.
I know, this whole time. I don't know why they're not reviving that. Like, come on.
Well,
come on, you
make
guys.
it a Battle Royale Blood Rain game.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Oof.
See,
It's what the kids like
hire
right
me,
now.
hire me, Infernal Technologies. I'll make you fucking money.
No, you know what it should be? It should be a card game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Digital CCG.
Or it could be a battle royale game that has hero shooter elements and then a card
Mm-hmm.
game mini game.
See, now we're cooking with gas.
There
Now
we
we're going.
go.
There we go.
Uh,
We'll develop it for 5 years, and by the time it comes out, it'll all be woefully outdated.
although in Terminal Reality's defense, I was also reading that they made the Ghostbusters game that came out semi recently. I think it's their most recent title, and
yeah.
that is actually supposed to be a pretty solid game.
Yeah, I've heard of people like that
Yeah.
because that was the one that actually had like the voice actors and stuff.
Yeah. It's
doing the
and I
voices.
guess the plot is more or less what they would have done for Ghostbusters 3. So it's kind of like if Ghostbusters 3 had been made way back in the 90s, that game is what it would have been. Which is kind of cool. Hey, I guess Terminal Reality did one cool thing.
But instead, we got Ghostbusters 2016. Wah wah.
Wah wah. Let's move over to another lawsuit, a Bruin, and maybe just as ridiculous a lawsuit.
You think?
I don't know. Not just as ridiculous, but possibly just as ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm gonna read a little bit of this. This is from Kotaku. Our boy Jason Schreier, who I think accounts for over 50% of all stories read on the show. Detroit developer Quantic Dream sues French media over articles on toxic work conditions. Last week, Quantic Dream founder and CEO David Cage flew to New York City to show demos of his dramatic new PS4 game, Detroit Become Human, to press. In his home city of Paris, meanwhile, a different type of drama was unfolding. French journalists were defending themselves against Cage's legal charges. Quantic Dream has sued the French newspaper Le Monde and the website Mediapart, I'm guessing, for reports on the studio's working conditions, Kotaku has learned. As far as we can tell, this is the first incident of a video game studio taking legal action against the press for negative reporting. Cage and co-CEO Guillaume de Fondemoliere, I think, has threatened litigation in January when the reports hit, but some observers assume that it was posturing. It wasn't, as both Cage and the media outlets have confirmed to Kotaku. We learned about this unusual lawsuit in an unusual fashion. I happened to be in Paris this week doing press for an upcoming French version of my book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels.
I'm sorry, Chris, were you in Paris doing press for...
I was doing press for my book that came out. I do want to read that book, by the way, but that's another thing. At one point, I was scheduled to meet with Le Monde journalist William Audureau, whose name I remembered from an explosive article in January reporting allegations of sexist jokes, extensive crunch, and racist comments at Quantic Dreams. Quantic Dream denied the reports. I was looking forward to talking to him, but on Wednesday, my publisher told me that I was going to have to reschedule. He's caught up in court, they said. Court? I asked, trying to put the pieces together. Does this have something to do with Quantic Dream? My publisher didn't know the answer, but Kotaku senior reporter Cecilia D'Anastasio had a preview appointed for Detroit and New York on Thursday. Cage would be there. When she asked him what happened after the Le Monde article came out, Sony's PR handler shut questions down, but not before Cage let one piece of information slip. We're suing their journalists, he said. And it goes on like this. The publisher for Le Monde published a story alongside two other articles on the French website Mediapart and Canard PC. Dan Israel, a journalist for Mediapart, told me this weekend that Quantic Dream was also suing his outlet. He asked not to be quoted, citing the ongoing trial. This is wild. See, I don't know how the laws work in France. If you can just openly sue journalistic outlets for negative coverage, because I don't think you can do that in the United States. But Cage is not letting down. Quantic Dream is not letting down, and they're taking it to court. And I guess, I don't know, like, good on them if it is all, if what they say is true and none of this shit took place and they're being slandered, then good on them. Because you shouldn't have to suffer slander for no reason. But if they're just doing this as posturing, then that sucks too. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to take it. Either way, it's probably a bad look to do this right as your game's coming out.
Yeah, that's the thing. I felt like this is... I usually fall on the side of, like, don't sue journalists. So
Sure.
that's my initial gut reaction. But yeah, also, you guys don't do this now when you're, because it's just going to generate bad press at the
Yeah.
release of your game. Wait until because people were starting to forget about those news stories that
Yeah.
and if people had totally forgotten about them, they probably would have by the time your game came out. And then after your game had made the money it was going to make, then you could go after those journalists, I guess. But
Yeah.
that's the thing, like a lot of the way people consume media, at least in the US, because that's my perspective and maybe it's different in France, but you'll have some sort of incendiary article come out about somebody, and then with as soon as the news cycle moves on, it just fades from memory.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of, because this sort of tied into the Me Too movement, with
Yeah.
the article that was being published about Quantic Dream and sort of the sexual harassment angle to it. And you see with media figures, at least in the U.S., when they're hit with these kind of things, you'll see them being let go from their jobs, or whatever companies they work at, or just out of the public eye. So they're still getting punished. Some would argue maybe not enough, but being punished, and then the public still forgets about it, but there is some sort of, retribution for them. Cage didn't suffer any of that. So,
Right.
which is why I'm surprised that he's still so upset about it and upset enough to sue, because Sony didn't have him fired from Quantic Dream or shut down Quantic Dream over the allegations. He basically got off scot-free from this really incendiary accusatory article that, if the article was true, he really shouldn't have gotten off scot-free about.
Right.
And his game's still coming out. He's still doing these press tours for the release of his game. How has he suffered from this negative press?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I wonder too. The real cynical part of me is did they do this to promote people to look at their game? Maybe they looked at their optics and they're like, not enough people know about Detroit Become Human. Maybe we should sue these people so that some more normies will take a look at our weird AI story-driven PS4 exclusive game.
I think that I hope that's not their thought process, because I think that's a huge miscalculation on their part.
Yeah.
People say there's no such thing as bad press, but that's not true, actually.
Not always, no.
No, people can. Everybody, they could do this lawsuit, and then they could be found out in court right as their game is coming out that actually these allegations were true and they totally were in the wrong suing these journalists, and that's a whole lot of negative press for them. And best case scenario, the sales for their game remain whatever they would have been because the gaming community isn't paying attention.
Right, yeah.
But I don't see any way for this to play out that random people that weren't already interested in Cage's games would be like, oh, they're involved in that lawsuit, maybe I should check out that game and go buy it. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see how it all plays out, because if it is slander, that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for Quantic Dream because, I know you hate David Cage for some reason, but, there's a lot of people that work there, and if it is all bullshit, then that, it's affecting a lot of people that work there. Just ordinary French citizens, mon ami. So yeah, but yeah, it's very strange. It'll take a while, I assume. The game will come out. I'm sure it'll do good. Word on the street is that it's very impressive from the people that have demoed it thus far. And I think that after it's done, the legal proceedings will take place, and in due diligence, and in the months and years to come, we might find out if what actually happened. But in the meantime, I guess I'm just excited to see if the game's any good.
Yeah, no, I think it's an intriguing game. It could be the first good David Cage game, perhaps. But as I've talked
I almost
about,
choked on a beer. You didn't like Indigo Prophecy?
nah, not particularly. The
No.
I think Indigo Prophecy is currently the best David Cage game,
Really?
but that is a low bar.
What
So
about the game where you yell Jason a lot?
Jason.
Jason!
Yeah, so someone mentioned in chat, didn't David Cage make Heavy Rain? Yes, that is the Jason game.
Yes. Yeah, that is the Jason. Yeah, the Jason game.
Find My Son, the game.
Jason! Jason!
No, David Cage, I've talked about him in the past on the show, and my big problem with him is just that he makes these games that I start playing, and I'm like, wow, this is a really cool game. Oh, wait, no, the story took a left turn, now it's horrible.
Now it's weird sci-fi bullshit.
Yeah, now it's this weird BS, and it's no longer enjoyable and is stupid. And yeah, and that's his big problem, is that he has these weird tendencies as a writer to just write to take this really interesting premise and then find a way to turn it to crap. So, and Detroit Become Human, man, that's a very cool premise. And I'm happy that the things that people have played of it have been consistently good. So I'm just like, okay, so maybe he won't take that left turn into Stupidville for this plot. Maybe, but yeah, we're just not going to know until that game comes out and people get to play the whole thing.
Is Stupidville in the French countryside?
No, it's actually in Switzerland, but a lot of
okay.
French vacation there. I don't know.
Sure. It's Stupidville.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of games that are written pretty poorly.
Oh, shots fired.
Yeah.
Let's talk about StarCraft 2, everybody.
Great. By the way, great games, absolutely amazing games, but Blizzard games have horrible stories.
No, that's true. The only I will say that the only time a Blizzard a story in a Blizzard game made me go like, wow, this is really fantastic narrative, was probably like Diablo 2.
Yeah, that's because it has a cool framing device.
Yeah, because it has a cool framing device, but the actual plot of Diablo 2 is not actually that interesting.
No, not much happens.
And yeah, like Warcraft, man, everyone just gets corrupted. That's like the plot of every Warcraft game.
Yeah, that's what happens, y'all get corrupted.
And then in StarCraft, you get infected by the Zerg.
Yep.
But although
Zergling, Lester.
To be fair, I did think that StarCraft 2's plot was better than StarCraft 1's plot.
Yeah, I mean, for the part one of it, I didn't play the other ones, but
yeah, so Blizzard, as we know, they've always gotten by having some really, really fantastic gameplay, and so we've usually forgiven a lot of the other things. But that we're talking about Blizzard and StarCraft because we have found out in a story yesterday, April 26th, the Blizzard is going to start selling StarCraft 2 mods made by the community. And these mods are going to be on sale for about $5 each. And I don't know if there's going to be any price fluctuation. Maybe as more added, that's something that's going to happen. Yeah. But basically, if you played StarCraft 1 back in the day and you got into using its campaign editor and its trigger system, which, man, I did.
Yeah.
That campaign editor was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
At least for the time. Now it's like extremely clunky and primitive. But
yes.
There's all sorts of cool stuff you can make with it, and when they put out StarCraft 2, they decided to also make a very robust campaign editor, so people naturally made lots of stuff, and because StarCraft 2 campaign editor is so much more robust than StarCraft 1's campaign editor just because of advancements in technology, you could pretty much turn StarCraft 2 into like any other game you want if you're good enough at using the campaign editor. So that made people really excited, like me, for all sorts of cool custom maps, and there were a lot of cool custom maps. I played a bunch of them, and I enjoyed it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This is a great way to do community stuff. And then and Blizzard said in, I think it was 2009 or something, whenever StarCraft 2 first came out, BlizzCon 2009, before Wings of Liberty was released, Blizzard floated the idea of letting third-party content creators sell their StarCraft maps and mods. And I remember reading that at the time before I bought StarCraft 2 and being like, wow, that's a really cool idea. And then Blizzard didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're now sitting here nearly a decade later,
Yeah.
and Blizzard's like, hey, we should do that.
Yeah. Blizzard has a tendency to do stuff like that. It's like, oh, we'll announce Diablo 3, and it took like another 6 years until it came out. But this is super cool. I think this is I think it's a good. I think this is the better way to do what Bethesda was trying to do with their paid mod system.
Yes.
Because the system, the StarCraft Arcade, it already exists. People already know these creators and these game modes, and so I think they'll be more willing to be like, oh hell, it's only $5 and I get all this extra stuff. Sure, I'll pay for it. Instead of being like, oh wait, I can already get better mods for free. I think this is a good way to pay back creators and just brings back fuzzy memories of playing Bunker Wars on BattleNet and on StarCraft 1 Brood War.
Yeah.
Good shit. Good
Yeah,
things.
definitely. Oh, I should also mention, as you just implied there, that the creators will get a percentage of the sale of these things. So it's not bad guy Blizzard being like, "Hey, you made content, we'll sell it for ourselves."
Yeah.
Luckily, we're not looking at that scenario. But yeah, no, I think this is cool. I just kind of think it's too late by a wide margin. Like, there's no. If this had been something that came out, maybe not alongside StarCraft 2, because I understand that would have been very difficult to pull off, but, like within a year or two, when people were still energized and interested in StarCraft 2, and now I think it's just a lot of the people who were going to leave that game have left it, and this isn't good enough to bring them back to it.
Yeah, the StarCraft scene it's not dead, but it's certainly not what it was. I mean, like in 2010, holy shit! Like just the esports side of it alone was huge. Not to mention just your average Joe playing it. And then, I mean, it's indicative of all things StarCraft 2 when they decided to break it up into 3 games. And like Legacy of the Void only came out like a couple years ago or something like that. Like it took like a decade for them to come out with all these games. And even with that, I think people were just kind of like, started getting fatigue because it was taking so long. And I think this is another sign of that, taking so long to implement this new arcade stuff. But,
yeah, I think there's so much about gaming where you really have to strike when the iron is hot on certain things, and I think this is probably one of those things. So yeah, like I'm glad they're doing it, but I don't see this being particularly successful because I think the window for it to have been successful is already passed.
I'm sure they'll make some money off of it.
However, one of the things that I will say is if they put out another game with a campaign editor, so like they put out maybe another Warcraft real-time strategy game, or heaven forbid StarCraft 3, or something else, or maybe if they, I don't know, they make another Diablo game and put a campaign editor in it, which would be rad, but they never do that.
Cool. No.
And this system is already in place and has proven workable and well liked by fans for StarCraft 2. It could be considered for other games as well. So that then it would actually come out shortly after that game's launch.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting to me, seeing what Blizzard, if this works out for Blizzard, how they would implement this in future games going forward.
Yeah, I think like this is one of those things that the game industry has always tried to broach the subject of microeconomies in their game, like getting players to create stuff in game and getting paid for it in real money. And it's really tough to pull off. Some games do it, like I know Warframe does it, and has a pretty thriving microeconomy there. But it's something that I'm always interested in and I'm always for, because I think that passionate players that create this stuff should be paid for it. They put hard work into it, so they should be paid. Methinks.
Yeah. So let's talk about Belgium, shall we?
Yes, Belgium, good old the little country that could, right underneath the Netherlands. EA, Activision Blizzard, and Valve found in breach of Belgian gambling laws. Oh my God, we talked about Belgium, or was it Denmark? I can't remember. One of those European countries, where they were going to they were going to start investigating loot boxes and microtransactions to see if they were in breach of gambling laws that were already present in those countries. And it seems like Belgia, I know it's not Belgia, sees that it is in fact a problem with their gambling laws. Three of the biggest firms in the industry could face criminal charges after the Belgian Gaming Commission found that certain loot boxes violate national laws. Following a 5-month investigation into Star Wars Battlefront 2, FIFA 18, Overwatch, and Counter-Strike Go, the BGC found that only Battlefield 2 did not directly contravene Belgian gambling legislation. Surprising, because that was kind of the one that started all this bullshit. The BGC director, Peter Naessens, I'm sure that's not how you pronounce that, noted that the players of these games are, quote, tempted and misled, and that none of the protective measures for gambling have been applied. Quote, now that it is clear that children and vulnerable people in particular are exposed to them unprotected, game manufacturers, but also parties such as FIFA, for example, are called upon to halt this practice. They go on. There's many quotes in here, but violations of gambling law is a criminal offense. In Electronic Arts, Valve, and Activision Blizzards could face a 800,000 euro, I think, fine if the offending loot boxes are not removed. There is also scope for a 5-year prison sentence, but these punishments could be doubled when minors are involved. However, unlike the recent decision from the Netherlands Gaming Authority, there is no hard deadline on when the game operators must comply with this law. And the article goes on, many quotes. They talk to EA mentions that it's willing to comply, and they spit out some corporate pre-written stuff, and they talk to a couple different gaming commissions from around Europe, and how they're also looking into it, and how they're trying to kind of meet in the middle with the industry. But it's interesting that I mean, we talked about loot boxes for so long, and we talked about how governments are getting involved, even though I sometimes think that's not a great idea, at least in America, but it might work elsewhere. And they're doing it. I mean, who knows how long this will take, and if it will stick, probably won't. But it seems like the Belgian government is actually trying to put them on the hook for something, which, good for them, I guess, if they find that it is indeed gambling. And it is gambling. I mean, let's be fucking honest with ourselves.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
There's
no doubt that it is gambling.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that we're hearing about another European... It seems like when Battlefront 2 sort of started this whole mess, in terms of governments talking about it, all of these different countries in Europe were like, oh, we should look into that. Yeah, what's going on with this? And it is just now that we are finally seeing the results of that inquiry. So we have, what was it? The European Gaming Commission had said that they weren't... they didn't count as gambling initially, but then a bunch of countries wanted to look into it for themselves, and last week we reported on the Netherlands story, and just to have another European country in the news again a week later talking about how they have come to a decision on it is really interesting. So I'm curious as to how many more countries we're going to hear from on this same topic.
Well, we heard about it from Hawaii. That didn't go anywhere.
Well, because the U.S. was never going to do anything. So,
I know.
But I am interested to see if dominoes sort of fall for a bunch of the different sort of extremely liberal European countries.
Yeah, the damn socialist countries, licks.
Ugh.
Damn, they got things like free healthcare and guaranteed education. They can go suck it because I got my guns. It is interesting to see how far they'll take it, how far they'll put these companies to the task. I envisioned one funny kind of future where, like, Belgium, what it's not Belgia, it's fucking Holland, I guess. In some kind of future where they do press these companies to the point where they're like, you can't make your games with the loot boxes in them. You have to sell them without the loot boxes. And then all of a sudden, everyone scrambles to try to buy like the Netherlandish copy of the game or something, just because it's the only one without loot boxes, and it becomes like this whole thing. And I thought that was a funny vision of the future.
Well, that's the thing, right? So there are different ways these companies can sort of maybe not circumvent, but kind of comply with this law. They can either make the game as it is, do all the predatory loot box stuff, and just be like, okay, we won't sell it in your country then. But if it's just Holland and the Netherlands where they can't sell it, then other countries in Europe that are bordering those countries will get copies, and then people will just get on a train and
Yeah,
go to a
yeah.
country where they can buy a copy. So all of those, so people in those countries are still going to be able to get copies, and it might not even be unrealistic to think that game companies will go in that direction if laws are particularly strict, because how big is the Belgian market? Like how
Probably
much?
not very big.
Yeah, how much money are they going to lose not selling to that small European country?
Yeah,
Probably.
it's a tiny country as it is.
Yeah. So that's one way they might go. Another way is they might develop special stuff on their servers, because we know most of these loot boxes and microtransaction stuff happens
Yeah, it's
connected
server
to
side.
the internet. Yeah. So if you're in the Netherlands and you like connect to the internet to play this game, you're connecting to a Netherlands server which does not have access to loot boxes and stuff like that.
Right.
So they might go in that direction. That's a way they could do it. Or they will actually just make a game that has loot boxes work in a different manner, or doesn't have loot boxes, although I think that is the least likely scenario.
Right. The Belgium mode. And I am stupid. The country is called Belgium, and the Netherlands is also called Holland.
Ah, there
Those are
we
two
go.
different companies, countries. And of course, Belgium has the beautiful Bruges, which you can always hide out in, as evidence in the film In Bruges.
Oh, yeah, I remember that movie. Didn't that movie have a super depressing ending? Like, didn't everybody die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it did.
Great.
But-
Colin Firth, everybody.
Yay, Colin Firth.
So, yeah, an interesting little development. I am curious to see if other European countries chime in soon about loot boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I will also point out one of the things this article says that you mentioned earlier: $800,000 euro fine, which, as we know in American dollars, is $5 billion.
Yes, that is roughly $800 billion.
Yes. It says like, oh, there's that fine if the offended loot boxes are not removed, and then that fine is doubled if minors are involved, and I'm like, yeah, so that fine, we might as well just assume that's 1.6 million euros, because minors will easily be able to be proven to be involved if they find that there are predatory loot boxes in the game. So
Also, the prison sentence thing. It's like, imagine seeing fucking the CEOs of these companies like fucking chained up and dragged to Belgium prison, which is probably a very nice prison.
I know. I was gonna say that's the thing. It's probably like a really nice prison. Very
'cause
comfortable. They
yeah.
probably let you have video game systems in there.
Probably because they're about rehabilitation, not systematically oppressing a lower class. Anyways, video games.
Video games. So let's talk about games that just came out, everybody.
Yay!
What just came out?
There's a game about prison that just came out, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, A Way Out.
Oh, A Way Out. Wait, when did that come out? Didn't that come out like way earlier in the month?
Maybe. I might be wrong about that.
Oh, no.
I'm dumb.
You ruined it.
Ruined it.
So, this week we saw the release of South Park: The Fractured But Whole for Nintendo
Yay.
Switch.
Yay!
People were excited.
I like the first one a lot, but I haven't played the second one.
Saturday Morning RPG for the Nintendo Switch, which was on Steam, right? I feel this game sounds very familiar. Yeah, I have seen this on Steam. It's a little indie RPG. That references 80s cartoons.
Yes.
But
it was ahead of its time. It came out in like 2012 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Before
everyone loved the 80s.
Referencing the 80s before it was cool. Saturday Morning RPG. So we also had Super Robot Wars X coming out for the PS4 and the Vita.
It lives.
So in terms of stuff that came out today, games that are not particularly interesting: Aquamoto Racing Utopia, whatever that is. Snowmoto Racing Freedom. Oh, you know what I should also point out? On the 24th, we had, because it's not on this list, but I know that it came out then because I bought it. This amusing indie game called The Swords of Ditto came out, which is actually getting mixed reviews on Steam. People do not like it, and I think they're crazy because I have clocked like 15 hours on that game so far, and I'm like, I can't wait to play this some more. Also, a lot of people have been having trouble with it glitching out on them, and
That's unfortunate.
I've seen plenty of video footage and screenshots of it, of people who've been playing it with like massive glitches showing up, and I'm like, oh, huh. I'm like 15 hours in, haven't encountered a single glitch yet.
Damn.
Good for
yeah, that's
me.
usually, I always feel that way. It's people like this game's like when people start saying that about any given game, and I'm usually like I don't have any problems with it. It's been fine for me.
Yeah.
Oh, you forgot to mention BattleTech came out. BattleTech's fucking rad.
Yeah, BattleTech.
BattleTech's the shit. It was made by Paradox and made with some of the original people that made Mech Warrior.
Ooh. Yeah, that was going off its very successful Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, coming up on the 1st, we have Super Mega Baseball 2.
When does God of War come out?
God of War. I thought God of War was out. Yeah, God of War came out on the 20th.
Okay.
Last Friday. We talked about it. Its release on the show last Friday briefly.
Yeah.
But let's see. We have Total War Saga, Thrones of Britannia.
Sure. Why not?
Why not? Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Nintendo Switch coming out on the 4th. That's a big deal. Yeah.
I guess. I mean, it's a port.
Yeah, but still.
Sure.
And then after that, there are actually some big games, but that's stuff we're going to talk about next week.
Fucking Pillars of Eternity!
Pillars of Eternity, Conan Exiles.
I might play Pillars of Eternity on stream.
You should. Then I'll talk to you about stuff on stream.
Yeah, we can read the endless amounts of text in that game.
Fun. So yeah, that's what's gonna happen. Hey, you. Thanks for watching or listening if you're listening on iTunes.
Yes, we're talking about you.
Yeah, you listener. So if you want to check out our show on social media, the best places to find us are Facebook and Twitter, and we pretty much just tweet or Facebook post about the new episodes that are being released, and occasionally we'll post a story or two.
And I post to our Angel Fire site.
Oh, yeah, that's important. I've got the GeoCities one covered, so you don't have to worry about that.
Good job.
But but yeah, those are, and if you want to find us on those, just search Don't Copy That Floppy on Facebook, and at DCTF Podcast is our Twitter handle. If you want to check out our show archive, it can be found on chipit.net, which is our lovely benefactor site. You provide our hosting, but also on iTunes. So you can go to iTunes and subscribe there. If you're on iTunes, why not rate and review? Give us a positive review. Why not? Why not? It's so easy.
What are you going to do? What else are you got to do?
Yeah. You don't have a life. Come on.
No. Come on.
And if you don't have a life and you also have a lot of money.
So if you're born into royalty.
Yeah. Please visit our Patreon page, and you can give money every month to get access to bonus content where I talk to Dan about things. We're going to record in a couple days this weekend our latest bonus content episode where we're going to be talking about how Dan decided to read the novel Ready Player One.
Oh, that's such a bad move.
And he apparently kind of likes it.
Oh no.
He was like, no, I mean, it was kind of annoying, but like, I was sort of enjoying it because he went in being like, this is stupid and I'm going to hate read it. And now he's like, and when I last talked to him about it a couple weeks ago, when he was like halfway through, he was just like, oh, I actually kind of like it.
That's unfortunate.
I know, it is unfortunate because the last bonus content episode we talked about how that movie was about to come out, and I was like, I'll probably go and see it in theaters unless it gets really bad reviews, and like, I don't know, it'll probably be a passable Spielberg action movie, and that's what it got him being like, I don't know, I think it looks like trash. And I'm like, hey, that's fair, it does kind of look like trash, and it sort of was. It was a middling film.
Sure.
But yeah, so he because he was so dead set against the movie, he decided to hate read the book, and then he accidentally fell in love.
Oh no. I don't think I've ever hate read a book. It's too much of a commitment.
I know. Well, apparently that book is very quick and easy to read because
it is.
But
I got through about 3/4 of them. Like, I'm fucking done. I can't do this. This is stupid.
Although, if he was gonna hate read it, he should have just asked me to borrow my copy because I was given a copy as a gift because someone was like, "You're a gamer. You like this stuff, right?"
That's probably why that book sold so well. Is just it's a bunch of people that are like, "Oh, my friend, my cousin likes video game. This has video game in it, and then you get it for Christmas.
Yep. Anyway, thanks again for listening. Join us next week when we talk about more video game news. But until then, Chris, what do people have to remember?
Don't copy that floppy.